Number one. Consider a motion to approve orders number 3 and number 4. All right. I'd like a motion to close the executive session and open the public meeting of the Board of Trustees, February 13th, 2018. Want a motion? Trustee Azillo, second. Trustee Taylor. Discussion? All in favor? Okay, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In lieu of the ordinary prayer tonight, I'm actually going to defer to Mayor McLaughlin, who wants to recognize someone who has been of service to the village, who we lost. Mr. Mayor?
Thanks, Larry. I guess you can't hear? No? It's always a very difficult time. I'm not quite sure. It's always a difficult time when we lose someone in the community that's been such an active person and a very, very wonderful person. And we lost Meg Lauer recently, who was a member of our PTSA and a member of our school board. So I'd like to have a moment of silence for Meg. So,
everyone can turn their mics back around. I will with the volume.
just so you're aware, in order to correct, I guess, an issue with the, can you hear me out there?
Jen,
Okay.
did you mean all of us turning back towards the audience or towards us?
They actually should turn towards the audience. So here's the situation. The recordings that were happening from the boardroom here were not going out on the video on public television. So the changes that were made, in fact, you'll see presenters tonight, there's actually no microphone there, but you are being recorded, and it will pick you up. Same thing here, the mics normally are pointing towards us. Now it's the same thing, the microphone's picking us up as we speak. So if you can't hear us, just raise your hand. We'll try to talk a little bit louder. Can you hear me back there? You still can't hear me. So I'll have to move this up. Okay. So the first presentation we have tonight, Matt Rosenberg from the PTSA. Is it a subcommittee, Matt, on the PTSA, the Safe Routes?
Yeah, the committee, the Safe Routes Committee.
Safe Route Committee. So Matt is going to give us a presentation. I know, I'm assuming most of you have heard that there was recently an accident near school where one of our students was struck by a car. And Matt is here to give us some thoughts from the group there on this going forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the board. Appreciate your having us tonight. As Mayor McLaughlin said, I'm from the Safe Routes Committee of the PTSA, Parent Teacher Student Association. And the mission of the board, can everybody hear me? The mission of the board is to make sure that students have safe streets, safe roads to walk, to bicycle, to use their scooters on, no matter where they're going in the village. So not just on the way to school, but wherever they have to get to in the village. We've done things, we've worked with community organizations to do things like clearing paths from Springhurst through the woods so kids can avoid the streets altogether. We work with the police department through Sergeant Canapie, who's the liaison to our committee, and we work with the village through Rob Barron, who's on both our committee and the village traffic committee. I appreciate your having us. tonight. I also appreciate all of the work that I know that you're already doing to help improve traffic safety in Dobbs Ferry. I know in his short term, the mayor has already gone and toured some sites that have been brought up to him by maybe people in this audience, concerned citizens, and we appreciate that and all that you've been doing. We're here specifically to ask the village to recognize that we have what we believe is a pedestrian emergency in Dobbs Ferry, highlighted by what happened a couple of weeks ago, but not isolated to that incident. And we would like to ask that the village take action, continue to take action by expediting action with the state on the, we'll talk about a study that's going on, to implement solutions that are both temporary, meaning we can do them really soon, and permanent, meaning that trucks might have to come in and help us. So tonight we're going to focus on Broadway, and there are a lot of other areas of concern in the village, but Broadway is a particular one for 3 reasons. One is it goes right by the middle school and high school, so 7 grades touch it in the morning and in the evening when they coming to school. It is a road that's got some weird idiosyncrasies, some design issues that make it particularly unsafe in a few areas. And it's also a road that is the main through road in the town. So a lot of traffic on Broadway doesn't originate in the village, it doesn't stay in the village. So drivers are perhaps a little bit more impatient to get through to wherever they're going, and also less familiar with the idiosyncrasies that the road has to offer. So mainly as background for people in the audience here, there's a study going on that's intended to, over the next couple of years, lead to a large revision of Route 9 across the river town, so not isolated to Dobbs Ferry. We understand that the consultants that are working on this plan are somewhere in the end stages of finalizing their recommendations. And we also understand that as part of the study, there has been a call for demonstration projects. And so what we'd like to do is make a couple of recommendations that we have here and see if the village can speak to the DOT about making these demonstration projects to prove out that what our thinking here is not only can work, but can work permanently. Finally, last week we sent out a survey through various Facebook groups associated with Dobbs Ferry, through the PTSA mailing list. We got over 200 responses from people who said that they were very much in support of making as immediate changes as we can in favor of improving safety conditions around town, but Broadway specifically. And we heard from a lot of people who said that they had had incidents of their own on Broadway. And some of these probably were never reported to the police because, you know, I almost got hit is a weird call to make. But we found a really disconcerting number of people with their own stories. So as the mayor said, we've focused attention on this right now because of recent incidents. There have been actually 3 kids that were hit by cars in Dobbs Ferry since the beginning of this school year. That's a lot. 2 weeks ago, it was an 8th grade girl. She was hit here at in the crosswalk at the intersection of McClellan and Broadway. Now this is a rough intersection. It looks nice and straight here, but it's 4 lanes, crossing 4 lanes of traffic. That's 44 feet about, if they're like all lanes that are two-spec. What you have to do in order to cross is you have to actually mind meld with 4 different drivers, make sure that they see you, make sure that they're prioritizing your safety in the crosswalk over their desire to get through the crosswalk. So that's a lot of nonverbal communication, and especially for an 8th grader. And there are a lot of kids, this is right by the school, so some kids cross more diligently than other kids, but we know that in this area, a lot of kids cross the street, so we need to make sure that the street, as much as possible, is their friend rather than an impediment to their their safe crossing. The girl, by the way, was hit by a fairly small car. Had it been an SUV and she'd gone under the bumper rather than onto the hood, it would have been potentially a completely different outcome. And our goal here isn't to assess blame for any of this. You can cross as perfectly as ever, and still some of the impediments that the road creates makes it just a matter of time before someone is going to make a mistake and something's going to happen. So we're not here to blame the driver. It's not the driver's fault. Was the student crossing as diligently as possible? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But kids don't always, as I'm sure many of us are aware, do exactly everything right all the time. So blame is pointless. We're here to talk about some solutions. And what I'd like to do is now show you some recommendations that we have that we think can have an immediate and substantial, I hate to say, impact on traffic safety. But we think that in making demonstration projects out of these things, we'll create a road that is much less likely, much less inevitable to have accidents like this happen. So first, at that crosswalk, we need to reduce the road from 4 lanes to 2, from 44 feet to 22 feet. This happens anyway, just 100 feet farther south down the road. This is a place, just up north of here is the Mercy College intersection. And, I'm sure we've all observed, people gun it out of that intersection in order to try to beat the merge, especially from the right lane, which is particularly unsafe. This also, by the way, is that driveway to the left here. That's right in front of the Alcott School, which is a nursery school. So we're talking about the Dobbs Ferry schools. There's a lot of much younger kids and nannies and carts, carriages going in and out of there too. Secondly, we want to put in a pedestrian refuge island at that crosswalk. If you do that, now you don't even have to cross 22 feet. Now you cross 11 feet and check to make sure that it's still safe to go the rest of the way. Now, the McClellan crosswalk is not the only one that requires mitigations that are substantially like this. There have been a number of near misses recently of people crossing the aqueduct at Broadway and Hatch Terrace. It's even wider, and the sight lines are worse, and like at McClellan, a few hundred feet later, the 2 lanes of Broadway merge down to 1 because of parking. It's also a place, therefore, that people gun it out of the Livingston intersection in order to try to beat the merge. So that's 2. Third is right in front of the middle school and high schools, the road again widens. It doesn't widen to 2 marked lanes. It widens to 1 extra wide single lane that drivers often think is simply 2 lanes that the white lines have come off. So it becomes a little bit haphazard the way traffic organizes around there. And it's really well controlled when there's a crossing guard there. Crossing guards, though, aren't there for that much of the day, and activities for kids after school can extend pretty deep into the evening sometimes. So we think that this is an intersection that requires some remediation as well. And what we would do here is narrow it so it's really 1 lane. Also put in a refuge island, which some mornings I think the crossing guard who works at that stop would really appreciate. That's Belden. And we'd like to see these, this looks like here with our Microsoft Paint skills at drawing in lane narrowing, that it might slow down traffic significantly. We're talking about a very short area here, and any slight braking that somebody has to do here over and above what they would normally do, I think is more than made up for by the increased safety. And we've also spoken to. Oh, sorry. I thought we were going to have to clear out. Like, wait, let's just get to the good part. We've talking. I've been to the Dobbs Ferry High Schools, that's what I said. We've been talking to Lisa Brady and members of the Board of Education, and I can say that the school administration is very interested in pursuing a school zone speed limit designation for at least some of the area between Ashford and Langdon on Broadway. Don't want to get more specific than that because I don't think the board or Lisa has really had her first meeting yet, and we need to do, and she needs to do some diligence. But if I understand the process correctly, the village also needs to make a resolution and weigh in on a school zone designation. And we ask that you do that as quickly as possible. The school, I think, has to go first. If you guys could do that nanoseconds later, that would be a big step in favor of safety at that on Broadway. Now, we understand that some drivers may see narrowing the roads as an impediment to getting through town. But the thing is, we narrow the roads all the time, temporarily, but we do it all the time. Some of it is obviously worth it. This one sign placed here on Broadway at Clinton has had the effect of eliminating the possibility that a driver stopped for a pedestrian in the crosswalk, had somebody like try to edge around to the right, somebody there can't see the person in the crosswalk. This has been a super dangerous intersection. That sign, as well as the flashers, have made an enormous difference. So we do this, and it doesn't stop traffic. We also narrow the road in the case of repairs. This is Broadway, just below Hatch Terrace. It's hard to see on this, but there's a sawhorse and a hole in the road where there was a little divot in the road that needed to be repaired. Traffic doesn't stop because of this. It just organizes itself into a single file line and continues to move, which again happens anyway a few hundred feet later when it's cars blocking the road instead of a sawhorse. Islands, we do islands when there's construction. Here you can see there's an island created there with a front loader in it. There's no flagman, traffic just reorganizes around it, nobody plows right into the front loader. So this is something that traffic is used to dealing with. And here's a great example of sort of a crossing guard creating their own lane narrowing because it's common sense, and she cares as much for the kids and I think her own safety as well. And she understands, just through common sense, that narrowing the road and making it harder to cut the corner if you're turning makes it a lot safer, makes drivers behave a lot more cautiously and carefully, and that's good for pedestrian safety. So we talked about speed limits in terms of the school zone, and we're hoping to do that. But there's also a feeling that we have that Dobbs Ferry should become a 25-mile-an-hour zone village-wide. We're 25 miles an hour now everywhere but Broadway, which is a state speed limit, and Ashford, and the two places that are most concerning in terms of traffic safety. I don't know if everybody in the audience can see, on the graphic on the left is the chances of survival for a pedestrian of an accident with a car at 20, 30, and 40 miles per hour. At 40 miles per hour, there's a 90% likelihood that your collision with a car will result in your death. At 30 miles an hour, that drops to 50-50. At 20 miles an hour, you have a 90% chance of survival. So, we've all heard speed kills. It actually does, and lower speed kills a lot less. So we think that it would be prudent for the village to lower the speed limits to 25, which I think would not only reduce any damage that happens from an accident that does occur, but also I think would give the police a little bit of help in enforcing what then becomes sort of functionally a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, because nobody gets a ticket like for a half mile over the speed limit. So that's a proposal we'd like to make as well. And finally, just a sum. These are the three things that we are asking the board for. First, resolve that we have a pedestrian emergency in Dobbs Ferry so that it becomes an ongoing item for us to check in on as a village, as a village administration. Second, based on the conversations that some of these, the folks in the audience and some of the folks that we've talked to who couldn't be here tonight have had with state legislators and DOT officials, we believe that there's a receptive environment at the state level for doing this. We understand, in fact, that some long-planned signage has been, for Dobbs-Ferry crosswalks, has been bumped to the top of the priority list because of the accident a couple of weeks ago and because of some of the noise that's been made. So regarding that noise, thank you, and I'm sorry. Finally, we ask that the village support any request that comes from the school administration for a school zone designation. And though I'm not here formally to ask this, that you guys give some consideration to a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit around the town. So thank you very much. I spent a lot of time talking. I appreciate the floor and your consideration.
Great. Matt, thanks very much. And it's great to see so many people come in here tonight to, support what you're discussing here tonight. I mean, I don't think that anybody would disagree with me here that the board feels that the safety and security of our citizens, and especially children, are our most important obligation and duty. We have recently created a traffic unit, and Chief Guevara is here with one of our officers that's on that duty, and many parents have called me over the last week to 10 days and discussed some of these issues already. And some of you may have seen me. I've gone out to these locations. It's not just Broadway. I mean, there was one location at Bellwood and Walgrove. There's one up on Clinton, Hatch, and Clinton and Broadway. And at the top of Clinton, there's a blind curve there where the school bus stops. So I've almost been hit a few times myself because I walk every morning within the town. So, I'm sort of aware of it. And I think we want to do, as we've talked previously with some of you here on the committee, the PTSA committee and the traffic committee with Trustee Cassell, who is our liaison. They've done a tremendous amount of work in the past, and I think we all support this. We have had conversations already with the state, with our assembly representatives that were in town actually about a week ago at Town Hall, so we spoke to them. And Mary Jane Shimsky, who is our county legislator, we were with them with the county executive today. So, I think we have the support of all of the interested groups involved, and I think working collaboratively together, moving forward, I think we'll be able to achieve a lot. I was very encouraged in recent conversations that I've had with many of these individuals and groups, that they were, as you said, Matt, they're more willing now to look at some of these things moving forward. So that was encouraging. So we want to coordinate this together, and we'll talk about that moving forward in the future. Let me just ask my fellow trustees, does anybody have any questions or any other comments that they'd like to make?
Yeah. My comment is, turn the microphone right. Thank you so much for this presentation. It was terrific. I mean, a lot of these concepts we've been trying to get done for years, as Rob knows. And actually, the timing of this presentation is perfect. As you know, Broadway is a state road. The problem with state roads is you have to get the state DOT on board to do anything. Whenever we've gone to them, all they said to us, well, you could do that if you want to pay for it, but you have to have a study first. You have to have a study first. Well, we have a study. We are on the brink of, what, as you mentioned, the Route 9 study. And all the things you talked about, I think, are practically in that study. So what we need to do is really coordinate this. So we don't want to have to wait 3-4 years for this stuff to be implemented. And maybe with your support and, you know, with the school support, whatever, once the study is ready, which should be probably April or May, very soon. And there will be a workshop, and everybody will be able to come to the workshop and see what's being proposed. We then immediately should start the groundswell of getting the state to implement these changes rather than having to wait forever. As far as the speed limit, again, that is state law. We can't change the speed on Broadway, unfortunately. We have gone to them in the past and they've said no, but now I think we should push for it.
Now, we have a meeting that's,
Yeah.
I've been informed, will be set up within the next 2 weeks. So we'll raise these issues at that meeting with the DOT. And we'll certainly push for everything we can to get, I mean, we want to make sure that going forward that, especially like school zone, I'm not quite sure why that couldn't be accomplished before, but we're going to certainly take a new look at that. So what I'd like to do is, I know at this point other people may want to come up and comment, but what I would ask you to do, if you're in support of what Matt has presented here, why don't you stand up and we'll have a good optic here on video. And there we go.
I know she's back very slowly.
So Matt, thank you very much again, and all of our concerned residents, thank you for coming out. We appreciate your support. Our next presentation is on 100 Main Street. Patty, you're all set up? And
Not yet.
Patty Steinschneider. Thank you all for coming.
When did members of the audience get together and say our piece about Matt's participation?
Well, we,
If you wanted,
you know, at courtesy of the floor,
courtesy of
we'll-
the floor first before this, it's up to you.
I mean, how many people want to make comments? That's, I mean, that's, if you're going to say something different from what Matt said? Okay. You want to come up and,
I was not exactly talking about only me. I can say my piece, but maybe everybody else.
you have to, you have to, you have to come up.
Actually, where is the mic?
Well, let's, why don't we do it this way, they don't have to hang around.
Yeah, because Debbie, you're still stand up and do a presentation on the noise thing.
No, this should
If you give me courtesy of the floor or.
It's okay?
Yeah, let's just do it. I would suggest we do it now, and then
Yeah.
people can go, they don't have to listen to
We'll
Patty.
we'll do it,
Thanks, Rob, I needed that.
we'll do it now because it's connected together. So, I mean, if you're going to say the same thing as Matt, we know you
No, I just wanted to
support
point
it.
out, there's also an after-school program that's,
You have to say your name and address, sorry.
Melissa Gill, 64 South Lawn Avenue. There's an after-school program across the street from Alcott as well. So you have an after-school program, you've got Alcott and the school and Mercy College. So just to add to the list to help.
Yeah, I think there's 5 schools in that.
Yeah, but there's an in-home daycare program that has like 14 local kids that go there. So it's just to add to the list, but I pick up from that after-school program, my kids go there, and it is near impossible if you're on Belden, not Maple, but Belden, Sherman, McClellan. If you're coming off those streets and you want to turn onto Broadway, a lot of those houses have tall hedges, and then there are the parked cars. So it becomes very hard to see even oncoming traffic. So having those pedestrian extensions to narrow the road would also make it safer, because then the cars coming from the side streets aren't creating a problem because they can't see. Because what happens now is cars inch out, and then they end up in that traffic lane on some of the streets, or because people are there. So it creates its own sense of chaos, so people aren't looking for pedestrians because they're looking for cars. So
Okay.
I just wanted to
Thank
add
you.
to that.
If I just to address the comment about after-school programs, one of the things that we had planned to do was to talk to Chief Guevara, who has done a very good job, very quickly getting up to speed with a traffic unit to try and coordinate that with some of these issues that have been identified around the schools, which they're already doing some of, and also some of the after-school and nighttime programs where you have children crossing the street after dark, which is even more difficult.
I'm Susan Metler, I'm at 86 Bellwood, and a lot of us, know at least 2 other Bellwood residents are here tonight, maybe more. We have a problem with people, cars racing up to Children's Village in Springhurst.
Yeah, I went over there to meet with the parents at both Walgrove and Bellwood, so we're aware of that.
Yeah.
And the chief has, Officer Rodriguez, I think, was there the day that I was.
That's correct.
That I was out there, and they actually, I mean, surprisingly, a few people went through the stop sign while we were standing there. So they are, the police department, I have to give them credit, they are enforcing it. Because some of the people that have gotten tickets are calling me about getting the ticket. So we're aware of that location.
The big ask is for some speed humps.
Right.
It would make so much difference. I don't even, I'm to the point where I like to park my car, like, you know, a few inches from the curb just to get in the way of speeders.
Yeah.
You know, it's uncool.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else?
Are we talking just about traffic issues or anything?
Just about the traffic.
Okay.
The,
Well, I do have something to say about something else too, but I would just add, Denise Wood in 154 Palisade Street. I would just add that the Mamaroneck High School, a speed zone was just created on Boston Post Road, Route 1, in front of Mamaroneck High School a few months ago, or several months ago. And of course, that was a long battle working with
Right.
the state, and they had the support of the state elected officials. But it can be done, and it was recently done. So as you said, the timing might be right for us to look at something like that.
yes, thank you.
My name's Robin, and I live at 218 Clinton Avenue, and I would just like to ask,
How are you, Rob?
I'm good, how are you? If something temporarily could be done now, and not in April, not in May, if we could do something temporarily now on Broadway, because of what just happened, to temporarily make it safer, and maybe that's not going to be the permanent solution, but if we could do something next week, or the next 2 weeks.
Well,
You know, tomorrow,
Yeah.
to put the signs, to make the lanes smaller, it would just show a lot to all of us parents here who are really concerned.
right.
So I'm asking for, to all of you, to see what we could do immediately. That's
Yeah,
all.
we're going to do everything we can possibly do. It is a state road, we do need,
I realize that.
Their
but I
permission.
think something could be done temporarily. That's
well,
all.
the thing is though, you know, we could do something there, and then if it creates an additional problem, then, you know, we have a tremendous liability that comes into play. So we have to be very careful. I am a new mayor, and you don't want to see me go to jail being arrested for doing something against the law, so.
My 2 cents is that if we do something temporarily without the state's authority, and then we go to them asking for all these things, it's gonna be much harder for them to wanna work with us.
We just had a student get hit by a car.
I know, I'm aware, I live here. I knew about it within an hour, I probably knew about it before most of you did. I'm not discounting the seriousness of the situation by any means. We just have to be mindful about creating long-term, permanent solutions, and we don't want to jeopardize them by doing things that's going to antagonize the DOT, when right now, we're in a position with a good study to get them to work with us and implement these suggestions, like Matt said, making our priorities the demonstration projects for the study so that we get them done sooner than later. And the way everybody here can help us is show up to the Route 9 workshops. When we ask everybody to write letters to our state officials and other people, the DOT and our legislators, to write the letters and be proactive that way. I mean, we all appreciate the seriousness of it, and trust me, if we could do something, we would have done it before this girl got hit, not after.
Quick question. Nathaniel Johnston, 71 Bellwood Avenue. Would the state be upset if maybe PD parked a car at the suggested pinch point during high pedestrian traffic hours?
We'll take a look at that.
I mean,
It's
just
an option.
people want
There's-
something immediate and
Yeah, there's many
temporary.
things that we have looked at already to
Yeah.
do, so we'll check all these things
You guys
out.
don't have anything better to do.
Peter, do you want me to stand over there?
Yeah.
Peter, I live on Broadway 504, so it's on the corner of Sherman. So it's a question to Matt. Thank you very much for the presentation. I noticed when you did the presentation, there was nothing about the corner of Maple and Broadway. And the reason I bring that up is it's very likely in that you have left-turning cars, you have a crosswalk on the north side of the intersection. So what typically will happen is you have people hugging the middle of the road. They stop in front of the crosswalk on the right-hand side. So when people are crossing, you've effectively got 4 lanes of people going through on the inside. So I would recommend, please, if you can, include Maple as part of that study. Thank you. Thanks for it.
Oh, yeah, I just want to respond. Rob Barron, 10 Cricket Lane. So in the Route 9 study, that intersection gets a lot of attention. We just felt like for our presentation tonight, we wanted to look at these 3, but the Route 9 study, and many people, I think almost everybody here probably has communicated and did workshops and things for the Route 9 study. Maple gets a lot of attention. And so thank you for that comment.
Anyone else?
I just have a comment. My name is Karina Ream. I live at 30 Livingston Avenue. And I just want to thank everyone here for their support. I want to thank everyone here for all the hard work. I think it's important that people realize there are, to my count, over 40 people in this village, many of whom are volunteers, working on this issue day in and day out, and working with the board and with our elected officials to try to move things forward. So I think it's also important for people to know that it is a process, and it is at the forefront of many people's minds here. I have a comment for this through the perspective of the eyes of a child. And my 10-year-old son and I were talking a lot about this recently, and he said, why should we wait until something bad happens? If we can do something now, we can prevent more collisions and keep all of us, including, I think I added something there, but we can keep all of us safe. So, kids get it too. And I think, to Matt's point, a lot of these intersections are impossible for adults to navigate. So I think, everybody showing up here tonight and having everyone's support, and I think we can create synergy and move it forward. So when we reach out to you and ask you for your support to make phone calls, to write letters, please do that, and please know that we're going to be working together to move it forward.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We are going to coordinate the effort and work together, and even from corresponding with these different. I mean, I think we can put together sample letters if we're going to have a write-in campaign, and make those available to anybody interested in doing that. And we would appreciate your support as we move forward with this with the DOT. To write when we need somebody to, we need you to write. It's really important that we get involved. I don't know how many people were involved with the Route 9 corridor issue. Some of us here were involved on the board. But there again, it was important that we get our comments out there. And, Rob, you were heavily involved with it. And, that's going to be coming very shortly, as Donna said. So I think working together, we will be very successful moving forward. So thank you all again tonight for coming, and sharing your thoughts with us. Great. Patty, I think we're ready.
We have another courtesy. We have the courtesy.
Courtesy of the floor is after Patty.
If anybody wants to go, you can. Oh, no, Matt, you have to stay. I have to stay. So, we're doing the sans mic, so I have to talk loudly so that mic.
No, it's actually, there's a mic there, it's just, you don't see it. Don't worry, Patty, we'll hear you.
My brother is watching.
We'll hear you.
Not a problem. This is about 100 Main Street, which is a project that we've been working on, actually going back to 2005. And it's one that most of this board is not really that familiar with in terms of us coming before you, because our time coming before the Board of Trustees was back in 2014, which I think maybe Vinnie, you were on at that point. Donna was, but I think that was before Larry and certainly before the rest of you guys. So what I'd like to do tonight is just kind of bring everybody up to speed where we're at and figure out with the board what you'd like to do next and how we move forward. So I don't think you really need a lot of photos, but this is the building that's on the corner of Elm and Main Street. The building that you see behind there is what's sometimes called the barn, often called the garage. And this is one of the issues that's been most concern in this project. This is a closer view of that building, and this is the view of that building from the aqueduct. When we started this was back in 2014 with this application. We came in and we showed ideas. This is just a list of the change plans that we've gone through during that review process, effectively between 2014 and 2016. We got great input from the planning board, the architectural review board. We made changes accordingly, and we got to a point where we felt we were complete and it was time to take action. Back in 2005, an architect from Hastings was looking at this same property. He proposed renovating the back building into 2 residential units and adding a story on the front building. We collaborated with him on a couple of things. We thought that was a good idea. He got shot down on the basis that this building was pre-existing non-conforming and he was actually denied by the zoning board for it to be used. The reason, curiously, is that this building is on the property line, and the zoning code at that time required a 30-foot setback to the aqueduct. That was changed in 2010 with the adoption of the new code, which was a 5-year process involving more than 500 people. And one of those changes at that time, in 2010, was the setback, rear yard setback in the business district was eliminated. So it went from having a 30-foot setback in the DB zone and the DG zone to having 0 setback. The DT zone was reduced from 30 feet to 25. This was heavily studied by the planners and the consultants and everybody that was working on it. At that point, that went away. The owner of that property sold the property. The new owner, Leon Sutton, retained our services, and we came before the village in February 2014. And the plan that we showed was taking the existing building, putting an additional story on top, and building a second building in the back, which would have a setback to the aqueduct. What we initially proposed was a total of 6 residential units in the back, 6 residential units in the front, for a total of 12, keeping the retail on the ground floor, no parking on site. The idea was that we would support the construction of a deck behind Village Hall. And one of the reasons that we went from 2014 until, I think it was March of 2015, with very little happening on this, is that Marcus at that time, not to support this application, but to investigate the potential, initiated a process with the state. And I worked with Dwight Douglas and with George Palmer, village planner, village engineer, and we had a number of meetings with the state, talking specifically about changes that could be made to the parking lots. George Palmer developed a plan for parking behind Cedar Street, and all those were being discussed, because the idea was, if we're gonna get rid of the parking, not require parking here, you couldn't do that unless you really had a program to create parking. That was when we first came in. This was March 2015. We still had that concept, although with knowing that that parking was not gonna happen quickly enough for this, what we did is we added parking below. We reduced the front building to no longer have a story being added to it. We had a total of 4 units in the back, and we had all the required parking on site. But this was still 2 independent structures. Right after, around April 2015, the planning board had a number of comments, both in the meetings and at a couple of site walks that we had. And one of the things that they were suggesting is that we break the massing down between, so that instead of building one large building here, we would actually have a series of small buildings, or what would appear to be small buildings, but would actually be one structure that would have the existing residents in the front, additional residences in the back, and make some use of the concept of that existing barn garage. The idea of maybe trying to build something that would be similar to it. This was what we came back in May of 2015. This was the plan that we had at that time. It had a larger volume than the existing massing, so that it was 2 stories where that existing garage is in the back. And that's kind of where we were in 2015. June 2015, we had a site walk with the planning board, the architectural review board. They issued a joint memo. That joint memo made a number of specific points. It was that any parking required, with the exception of 2 curbside parking spaces, would be provided on site. No pileups. That the massing would break itself down. Instead of being a large structure, it would be a series of what would appear smaller structures. That any of the exterior circulation components, staircases, walkways, things like that, would be enclosed. We had shown open connections between the components, and that was described as feeling very motel-like. That was not intended as a complimentary description. So those were the 3 suggestions that they made. We then came back in August 2015, integrating those suggestions. We experimented with what was du jour for roofs that summer, with the mansard on the top. This was the set of plans that actually was recommended, or a resolution was written by the planning board and submitted to the board of trustees in October of 2015, and that was for the scheme. We were continuously meeting with the AHRB during the same process. So their conclusion came a month later. In our discussions with them, they got rid of the mansard. They wanted to have a more glass-like structure on top, and this was the plan that they forwarded to the board of trustees, recommending that it be approved. That came to the board of trustees in January 2016. At that time, there was concern at the board of trustees that the resolution adopted by the planning board, it wasn't like one of their typical resolutions. It didn't say, we like this project, please approve it. It said, if you're going to approve this project, we'd like you to consider eliminating 1 story and 1 unit. And I think the board of trustees rightfully said that's not really a recommendation for what we're supposed to do. So what they did is they remanded it back to the planning board, and we appeared at the planning board, I guess February, March, April, and in May, they adopted a resolution for a revised design, and these were the drawings that we showed, renderings that we showed them at that time. The resolution that they did in 2015 had this top floor. The version in 2016 had eliminated that. Top floor eliminated, top floor eliminated. So on that basis, they submitted plans that went to the board of trustees with a recommendation specifically that you approve that design. We continued working with the architectural review board. the Architectural Review Board made a series of additional changes, but very consistent with where the planning board was at. And the final design that we had at the Architectural Review Board was October 2016. It had eliminated what previously had been an open connection here, made all the connections solid, brought a roof across, tying the back to the front. They had a number of concerns. They were worried that you could see cars if you were walking down the aqueduct through the opening in the back. So that received a lot of work.
At this point, it's what, seven?
This was reduced to 7 units. No, 5 units. 2 units in the front, with 3 units in the back. We've always reserved, I don't know whether the owner would want to do it, but if we have the 2 curbside parking spaces, we would have enough to break the 2 duplex units in the front into a total of 4 units. But we really see that as a secondary thing. It might be better to have 4 smaller apartments than 2 larger apartments. But in terms of the massing, the changes on the exterior, that wouldn't be affected. So we also had concerns expressed at one point that the way we had rendered this seemed to make it seem like too many different pieces. So we did show them if we did everything in one material, it would tie together. I don't think that works as well as breaking it down with massing with the materials. This is the photo of the existing building. This is how much taller it would be with us rebuilding that structure. The reason it gets taller is to provide the space underneath for the parking. So it's not the fact that this building is actually taller than the building, it's taller because of where it starts. The other way. This was just looking up Elm Street. There's another concern that's been expressed a couple of times is that the massing, there was a loss of the awareness of this structure. But I think it works very well. You see the structure from Main Street. Everything else kind of sets back in. This is a drawing that just shows what we're proposed overlaid on top of what's existing. So you can see that it's effectively, it's fitting in with the massing of that existing site. We produced a report originally in 2015, updated in July 2016, which dealt with all of the issues of the views, the historical characteristics of the site. At this point, these are just the board resolutions. This is the one from 2015. This is the one from 2016 with the planning board. That all seemed fairly clear. When we were moving forward with the Architectural Review Board, the issue that came up of greatest concern was whether or not the existing structure had historical significance. We had done our research. We had determined we didn't think it did. We had dated the building between 1928 and 1935 based on information that we had. There were others who have represented that it was a much older structure than that. And what the Architectural Review Board asked us to do to resolve it was to have the village hire an outside consultant who would be paid by the property owner. Historic Perspectives was brought in, and C.C. Saunders produced a report for the people in her office that did a very thorough analysis of the site, addressed many of the concerns that were expressed by neighbors and others with concern, and came to a very specific conclusion that the building does not have historical significance, and very specifically that there is not some magical relationship of this structure to the aqueduct. And for any of you, I'm sure the village has copies of this. It's worth reading it because I think it makes it very, very clear. What we got in August of 2016 from the AHRB was a decision where the chair said that the AHRB was done with the process for that building at that time, that it would come back to the AHRB after it had been acted upon by the Board of Trustees. So that was our understanding of what was going to happen. It didn't come back to the Board of Trustees. We were advised to go to the Architectural Review Board again, which we did. And at that meeting, we were told that, I can't really read it, but that a recommendation would be coming from the Architectural Review Board in time for the Board of Trustees' next meeting.
Okay.
September 2016. The next time we got a correspondence from the Architectural Review Board on this, which was a non-favorable one by the chair, it was in October or November 2017. And the main reason that it was listed as why it should not be considered as a viable way of developing the site was because it did not comply with the recently adopted rear yard setback to the aqueduct. That was adopted by this board, I believe, in August of 2017, which is significantly after all of the work that was done here. I understand changing codes, I understand concerns come up and you address them. The concern we have is that the planning board and the architectural review board have to work with the code that's in place. They did. They put tremendous amounts of time and energy into this, as did the applicant. And we did all of this on the concept that the code was the code. The idea that we would go through all of that and specific recommendations made during that process would be, do not have a setback to the aqueduct. Instead, create a new structure in the place of the existing structure up on the aqueduct. Those seemed like very good suggestions made by the boards in the village. We followed those. So what we're looking for now is what happens next on this. It's been a long time with no action. And the owner of the property would certainly like this board to do something.
Well, thanks, Patty, for the presentation. I mean, this is a fairly brand-new board. I mean, we have a lot of new members, and I think we really need to take a close look at this situation and you know, go through it before we make any decision. But we will get back to you shortly. I think we need to discuss it further. We need to take a look at all of the issues that came into play on this, and then we'll get back to you and let you know our decision. Thank you. Should we have courtesy of the floor? Would anybody like to make a comment? Yes. State your name and your address, if you don't mind.
Hi, Denise Wooden, 154 Palisade Street. I'm very much in support of one of your items that is going to be coming up later on, which is the official approval of the Dobbs Ferry Tree Consortium, which in its short time has been doing some great work. Which leads me to my comment. I have concerns which I've expressed to the board, and particularly appreciate an email exchange that I've had with Trustee Cassell, and about the parking lot at 99 Cedar Street. As a resident of 154 Palisade, directly across the street from me, I have the Mercy College parking lot at 145. And it is my understanding from previous presentations here that they're going to be doing some landscaping, but at the same time taking down possibly some full-growth mature trees, which is a real shame. And I've noticed that at the 99 Cedar Street parking lot, I counted when the works first started about 8 or 9 large tree stumps where trees had apparently been taken down there. I don't think I need to tell anyone here how important trees are to our community, both from an environmental standpoint, from our community character, and from just aesthetics of having green and having full-growth trees. So I don't know where the landscaping plan for this new parking lot is but I would urge whoever is in charge to please make sure that real trees are put back in that parking lot, particularly along the street line. The people who live on that end of Palisade Street now are looking at 2 big parking lots right in our immediate neighborhood. And it's really, I mean, I can only speak for myself at this point, but it's really, really important that we don't just have a few little flowers and a couple little bushes put in and call it a day, that we have some real trees there, because that will make a real difference in our neighborhood.
Well, thank you. I hear what you're saying. I love trees.
And I'm not, I understand the need for parking for the downtown. So, while I have other concerns, which I'll deal with at another time, I wanted to tonight, because we're going to be talking about the tree consortium, I wanted to really urge that we have some trees put down.
Thanks. Charlene, are there any plans already on the table for?
At this point, that we do have some landscaping plans. They've not been totally developed yet. We do understand the issue and we'll.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You have, Mara lives also on
I
Palisade
know.
Street, and I work on Palisade at 145, so you have two people in your corner up here.
Great.
Yes,
Wanting trees.
Okay, thank you.
we have seven. We have seven.
A lot of people like.
Seven on your side. Is that the way?
Charlene, do you know off the top of your head whether the current plans or tentative plans for the landscaping are available publicly?
No, not as yet.
Not yet, okay.
Not as yet, because there have been some slight changes because of the pitch of the land and it changed, so we changed the landscaping too, and we're not fully developed on that yet.
Great. Thank you. Debbie? Just state your name and address.
Good evening, Debbie Cooper Smith, 21 Maplewood Avenue in Dobbs Ferry. I am
Sonia Turjanian, 43 Golden.
Right, and we have other people here that are supporting us, but they're sitting down. I had four people, Sonia, myself, Heidi Gross, and Mary Ellen Connington, wrote you a letter regarding the idea that we think the time has come to look at noise and the effect of noise in the village of Dobbs Ferry with the intention of understanding the benefit that public awareness of noise containment would have on our community. And I think it's pretty timely after Patty's presentation.
Are you referring to noise?
Well, I'm saying sort of symbolically that there's been over the years a lot of development going on. That's number one. Number two, Mercy College now is renting out apartments to students. So they're living there sort of in more sort of communal circumstances. Downtown is bopping. So that we think that it would be very beneficial to have a noise commission or noise task force, as Sonia and I sort of coined it, to look at four things, which we put in a bullet to you in a letter. To review the current noise ordinance, to understand what it says, what it doesn't say, and to sort of read that clearly to really understand what it in fact is conveying. To compare this with other neighborhoods and other villages around us. For instance, I know, just because I've been looking just informally, that Irvington has a tighter noise ordinance, sort of addresses things in a much more concise way. To gather the community, to gather people from the community and perhaps people from the board for us to all get together to have input, to see what's new, and to propose changes to the village code. And we think for two really important reasons. One is to make Dobbs Ferry a peaceful community, which I think I hope we all would agree would be beneficial. And also to reduce burden on law enforcement, because who wants to call over and over again the police to deal with unnecessary noise in our town? So in our view, it's kind of win-win. I mean, just looking at a group of people in the community, residents and workers, to see how we can, what we can do to make Dobbs Ferry peaceful, great place to live.
Thanks, Debbie. I guess I'm set. I think we need to discuss it, the board. and we will take a look at this, and we'll get back to you very shortly. We need to discuss a little bit further, I think, and we'll give you a call over the next week or so. I might even stop by you right down the street from you, and we can talk about it. All right? Thank you very much. Sonia, did you want to say a few words?
Just that we would love your support and, your assistance in forming a task force and making sure we have a lot of representation from different parts of the village and different types of residents. So,
Great.
yeah.
Okay, terrific. Thanks for your comments. I appreciate you coming up, and we'll talk shortly. Steve?
Standing over there. Steve Tilley, 22 Elm Street. I would just support both I'm a tree guy too, but I would really support the clearing of that corner on Palisade Street, which I go by just about every day, really has opened it up. I mean, we don't miss the shed, the salt shed, but it really, I would encourage an investment in substantial street trees. And, it costs a little more money, but really getting something there that, isn't sort of on life support.
Right.
The other thing about, I would also, I really endorse Debbie and Sonia's initiative on noise. It's not just an aesthetic thing, it's not just a nice thing. There really are public health consequences to noise, and it's related, the traffic, higher speeds generate higher noise. So that the whole emphasis on reducing speed and on increasing, in fact, increasing vegetation.
That's a very good point.
Is really public health as well as kind of an amenity that we all like and, pay money to live in Dobbs Ferry for. And so, finally, I'd be happy to give you my own presentation on 100 Main Street at any time. If that issue comes back, definitely historic preservation, which is also quieter than new construction, I would add, is an important, obviously something that's important to a bunch of us in the village, and we look forward to talking with you about that.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Rob?
Yeah. I also want to support the noise task force efforts. If Sonia's involved, it's going to be great anyway. So.
Yes, that's true.
But one of the things that I think the task force, I would hope, would do is to help our institutions that are purchasing, say, landscaping equipment, you know what I'm talking about, to get quieter machines, because it's really, it continues to be a problem. So thank you very much.
I like love them and leave them.
Right. Yeah. Love them and leave them.
Anyone else?
Kathy's coming up later.
Oh, she's going to talk at the...
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to consider a motion to approve audits number 1 and number 2 for February 2018 as recommended by the village treasurer. Have a motion? Trustee Rosillo, second. Trustee Taylor. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Consider a motion to certify and approve the 2017 Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Firefighter Service Award points listing. Have a motion? Trustee Rosillo, second. Trustee Sullivan. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Consider a motion to make budget transfers from the following accounts. Material and supply, $1,500. Maintenance, $2,441. Professional development, $926.50. As recommended by Chief, excuse me, a motion. Trustee Taylor?
We missed a line.
Oh.
As indicated in the agenda, you can
Yes.
send.
We just missed the
Oh,
line.
okay.
It's indicated.
We have a motion. Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Cassell. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Consider a motion to approve a request from River Arts to donate $2,000 to support the studio tour, the music tour, and all of their community events. Have a motion?
Just wanted to add color to that. This is for 2017, the request they put in for 2017, and all the other 3 villages also do this donation. So just to know that there's going to still be a 2018 request coming down the line.
All right. Thank you, trustee. Do I have a motion?
So that means that we're paying for the studio tour that happened last year in Doxbury?
Well, I mean, it's a donation to River Arts for everything they do, not just the studio tour.
I think we've done this before, have we not?
Well,
Yeah.
it's a separate, the village, I believe, has typically provided separately some support specifically to River Arts for the waterfront concerts, which so many people enjoy on Wednesday evenings. So that's a separate thing that the village has done. And typically, the village has also been listed as one of River Arts' contributing sponsors. So it's very clear that the village has been supportive, and I think it's something that's enjoyed by a lot of the residents.
Right.
And viewed, in particular as an amenity of living in Doxbury.
Yeah, those Wednesday night jazz concerts are very well attended and received. Okay, do we have a motion? Trustee Nell? Second? Trustee DeRosa? Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Consider a motion to approve stormwater maintenance agreement for the master's school. I think this was done by Han Engineering.
You want a little update?
Yeah, you want to?
Sure. This is the development for the facility up at Master School that was approved a few years back and built. Everything's finally done, all the stormwater facilities are done. As part of the approval process, they need to get what's called a stormwater pollution prevention permit, or a SWIP, I think you've heard before. And for properties over 1 acre, that is required. Since this is over 1 acre, they're required to do that with DEC. We've been working with DEC. This is required under the state law. We have a few with Mercy College. We have Rivertown Square has one, so if it's greater than an acre, it's required. It's pretty standard. We have a form in our code. We beefed it up a little bit. So in other words, if they don't maintain the stormwater, they have to. If they don't, we will, and they have to give us money to do it. So pretty standard.
Very good. So
And somebody's reviewed this to ensure that this is what Han has reviewed to ensure that it's functioning the way it's supposed to function, and that it's.
I work with Han, with George.
And he's comfortable that this meets the needs as spec.
Absolutely, this is pretty, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Nell. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Consider a motion to adopt a resolution in support of immediate state agency rulemaking for tanker avoidance zones. And Donna, you were involved with this, right?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
You want to just comment on it?
Yeah, the Coast Guard was talking about allowing anchorage off along the Hudson River from Yonkers all the way up to, I don't know, Tarrytown, Peekskill. And the river towns in particular, those river towns who have LWRPs were able to actually stop them from doing that without consulting us first. So that was one part of it, but I think this is to encourage Governor Cuomo, is that what this? Yeah. Yeah. To not grant these anchorages, essentially. So they could pose a potential serious environmental hazard. And we were kind of lucky to be able to catch this before the hearing time was up. We got very close, but we were able to find out that this was going on and stop it. And we want to make sure that it does not continue. It's been paused for now, but we want to make sure that it does not happen.
And it would be making some rules by the state that would contain the extension of the anchorages that really would not only mar the vistas of the Hudson River, but can really possibly do damage. The band barge from the Yonkers group really was very, very helpful in this, and all the river towns have been drawn together to do this, and the state has agreed to look at remaking.
So we have a motion. Trustee Cassell, second. Trustee Taylor, discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. Consider a motion to appoint Ms. Nancy Delmerico as Chair of the Conservation Advisory Board for a period of 3 months, effective February 14th, 2018.
Mr. Mayor.
Did I skip one? Oh, I'm sorry.
She's not approved yet.
Let's go. Can we do Nancy first?
Yeah.
Yeah. Motion? Trustee Mazzillo, second. Trustee Sullivan, discussion, all in favor?
but just part the session. Neil De Pasquale, who was chair of the CAB, had to step down for personal reasons. So I just want to acknowledge his service to the village. And he was tremendous on the CAB, and he will continue with us for a little bit. Nancy will do a great job, and perhaps we can even coax her into staying as chair.
Did you want to make a comment, Nancy?
What's that?
Did you want to make a comment?
No.
No. Welcome aboard. Consider a motion to accept the resignation of Grayson Pasteri.
We have to vote on that, but that was just a discussion. Yeah.
All in favor? Consider a motion to accept the resignation of Grayson Pasterick from the Livingston Hose Company and remove her name from the active insurance roll. Motion? Trustee Cassell, second. Trustee Sullivan, discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. Consider a motion to approve a request from Mr. William Florin, Commander Dobbs Ferry, American Legion Post 1048, to hold 2 flea markets at the waterfront on April 15th, 2018, with a rain date of April 22nd, and on September 16th, with a rain date of September 23rd. Motion. Trustee Cassell, second. Trustee Nell, discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. Consider a motion to approve a request from the Dobbs Ferry Girl Scouts to sell cookies at the train station on March 12th and March 15th from 4:30 to 8 p.m. Motion. Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Taylor, discussion. I love Girl Scout cookies. You know that. Simona. All in favor? Unanimous. Excuse me. I think I'm missing the back page.
This one?
Yes. You got it, Jim.
Which one's that?
Consider a motion to establish the Dobbs Ferry Tree Consortium and to appoint the following people as members for a term of 1 year. Ms. Mary Fennel Gerber, Beautification Committee Chair, Deputy Mayor Donna Cassell, the Conservation Advisory Board Liaison, Ms. Nancy Delmerico, Conservation Advisory Board Chair, Mr. Neil De Pasquale, the Tree Commission, Ms. Kathy Dean, Energy Task Force Member, Ms. Susan DeGeorge, Energy Task Force Member, Ms. Nina Orville, Energy Task Force Chair, Ms. Jean Ceccolini, Friends of the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront, Ms. Marie McKellar, Friends of the Dobbs Ferry Waterfront, Ms. Madeline Byrne, the Garden Club, Ms. Susan Klozik, the Garden Club Co-Commission Chair, Ms., did I get that right? Ms. Kendra Garrison, Superintendent of Recreation, Ms. Lenore Person, Roots and Wings, Ms. Irma Kapitanopoulos, the Tree Commission, and Miss Elizabeth Martin, the Waterfront Committee. Do I have a motion? Trustee Cassell, second. Trustee DeRossi. Discussion? Yeah. Kathy, did you want to come up and?
I'll be really fast. I know everybody wants to go home. Thank you for putting us in this meeting. Most of you have heard this, but the tree commission happened quite by accident. Myself, Susan DeGeorge, and Nancy Del Merico were walking down the street one day, and we started talking about our volunteer efforts. And it turned out that the Energy Task Force had just completed the climate action plan. The Community Conservation Advisory Board had just called it the Central Park Conservancy. We decided we needed to start talking to each other. So we spent 3 months trying to figure out how many different organizations in this village deal with trees. And after about 3 months, we figured out there are 11. We now have, and it may go up to 13 because it looks like the Scouts may be joining us also.
Wow.
So we had a meeting and everybody came. And we made a list of what we think are the issues regarding trees. I won't go there, Nancy. I want to say we speak for the trees, but I did. And we made a list of what we thought the solutions might be. And in March, we will come and tell you what our suggestions for some solutions. But we would like to be recognized by the village. It is not our intention to get in the way. It is our intention to attempt to have some say in what trees are placed where, correct trees in the right places and planted correctly, and also training for village residents and also for village staff. And we would just like to help and be involved. So
Well, that's fantastic. I mean,
Thank
I was
you.
at one of the more recent meetings that you held, and I think your efforts will be well received by the village. So thank you for volunteering and bringing this all together so we can really move forward and improve the village very shortly.
We were very encouraged by the enthusiasm and cooperation of the village, so thank you.
Well, thanks for,
Kathy, we're going to ask you
Yeah, we-
for a 99-seater to help us.
There's one more person that's not on the list. Steve Buccillo from Groundwork Hudson Valley was the Sawmill River Coalition. So it's the Sawmill River is involved. Sure.
He's on the list.
Oh, he's on the-
did I miss his name? I left out Joe Lucchese, and so they're on the list, and Steve. So we have to take a vote. All in favor? Unanimous? Terrific. We go to the minutes. Any comments on? Nope. No comments?
Minutes?
Minutes? No, okay. I guess that's,
You have to take a vote to approve the minutes.
we need a motion. So, do I have a motion on approval of the minutes? Trustee Pizzolo, second trustee DeRossi. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Any other reports? Trustee Nell, would you like to?
Just wanted to remind people that there's a Rivertown's Chamber of Commerce meeting on February 28th at 6:30 at Sun Ball in Irvington. So, show up. That's it.
Trustee DeRossi? Nothing? Trustee Taylor?
Nothing for me tonight, thanks.
Trustee Solo?
I just want to say that we had a good open house on January 27th for the library and meet the new director. It's been a good turnout, and I encourage people to sign up for the library newsletters, the same that they do for the other village newsletters. And that you should, for school-age children, you should check out the rec department because they have a lot of cool after-school trips that Kendra's been putting together.
Thank you. We also had the Mardi Gras senior luncheon today, which was, what a wild party.
They're wild, the seniors.
God, I mean, you were throwing those beads around, like really, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Trustee Patel.
traffic, trees, and lodges, we cover them.
Trustees?
I don't have anything.
A few things. We still need many people for committees. So if you're interested in volunteering on any committees, please get in touch with one of us or Trustee Nell, who is the liaison to the nominating committee. Paula McCarthy's the chair. And
I think the process is, Liz, don't they get applications from you?
There's a volunteer application form as well as instructions on the website. They can fill that out, submit that to me, and then I will in turn send it to the nominating committee, who will contact the individual when there's an availability and where they're interested.
so if you're interested, we need many members of various committees. So anything you may be interested in, please step up. Also, I don't want to forget the St. Patrick's Day Parade for the Rivertowns is on March 11th. So if you're interested in marching, I don't know if we can get the scouts there. The fire department will be leading. We'll have members of the police department and village staff, but all are welcome, so let us know. And I think they're having a dinner the week, in fact, the week from this Friday. Let me just see if I have the date. It's February 23rd. And by the way, the aide for this year, representing Dobbs Ferry, and I think Irvington, is our former police chief, Betsy Gilardi.
Oh, cool.
So, Charlene, did you have anything you wanted to say? Liz?
Well, there is something I didn't know if the Mayor Ward was going to mention it about our Assistant Building Inspector, Dan Romer. If you all were aware, he was out, doing his inspections, and he noticed that a resident had fallen on their lawn and was laying in the snow. And he did approach the individual, and apparently the resident had been laying there for about 45 minutes.
Wow.
And Dan saw to it that he got to his house, called the medics, so he was well taken care of, and just very much kudos to Dan for
Good job, Dan.
That's great.
That's quite kind news. The resident sent a very nice letter. I didn't know, I read it, it was very nice.
Well, that means the meeting is adjourned.